Hi, everyone. We got a great show for you. We have Katrina Wolff from New Zealand.
Hold on. Are we live?
We are live.
Are you sure?
Yes,
Okay.
we are. We are live.
Because it says go live up. Okay, now we're live. There's a delay or something. We're good. Hey, everybody.
You know, it's funny. We're talking to Katrina in the background, and I was worried about having a delay with Katrina. I got a delay with Corky.
That was weird because it said it wasn't live yet. So I'm like, how are we live? I'm like, I'm so confused. But we got it. We're good. Hi,
So
everybody.
just to let you guys know, we might be doing some stuff a little different in the future, giving away seeds and stuff in the beginning of the show, because we're trying to get people involved early in the show instead of everybody a little later and coming on in. So we might do a couple of little things different to get people in very early. So, well, anyway, we're going to show our video before we do the introduction and asking Katrina to come on. And she's in the background. So let's get to our movie, which is Common Ground. Hope you guys could check this out. Here we go.
A new documentary is launching a movement to change our farming practices and restore our soil.
I'm excited to share with you all Common Ground.
This is the single most important story of our lifetime. Now we have the ability to literally stop climate change in its tracks
within less than a generation.
This film actually proposes a solution. They could actually bring the entire planet to carbon neutral.
This is a crazy concept. This is insane.
Common Ground needs to be seen in the White House.
We couldn't not make a second film after Kiss the Ground. I mean, it was a runaway success.
The film is a love letter to our children, all about how we can save their future, but also make sure that the world is thriving for all future generations.
We have to come together and find common ground for common good.
How was the film received? Sold out screening.
It's probably one of the most important films you can see this year.
Go watch Common Ground. Best movie of the year.
It is a movie of our time and the next generations to come.
This movement is catching on like wildfire. What should I do next?
Go see Common Ground!
Awesome. Can't wait for to see that. It's a trilogy with 3 movies that just came out, so which is pretty awesome. So Katrina Smith. Who is Katrina Smith? Katrina is based in New Zealand. She's an inspiring individual with a passion for sustainable practices. She has made significant contributions in the field of biodynamic farming and composting. Well, let's explore a little more about her. Katrina is a founder of Borage, a biodynamic urban farm and foodscaping service. Borage creates kitchen gardens for home and businesses, empowering home cooks to grow their own salad greens and herbs. Their mission is to make fresh homegrown produce accessible to everyone. She's also a compost consultant. Katrina's expertise extends to composting. She actively educates her community about the benefits of composting and its positive impact on the environment. Her work contributes to more of a sustainable and resilient ecosystem. Katrina's commitment to sustainable practices and community education is commendable. Her work serves as an inspiration to others to embrace eco. I always mess it up, but their resilient systems. Her work serves as an inspiration to others to embrace what we're trying to do with the soil. Her long-term vision is that every spare space of land in suburban New Zealand is producing something like food, flowers, or compost. Feeding ourselves is a skill that can be retained as for a society. It's a valuable skill and one of the most what we should all learn. So, well, we're going to welcome Katrina on, and welcome, Katrina. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you both. And I can't believe I'm live on YouTube. I think this is the first.
Really? Oh, yep. Okay. Cool.
Done Facebook, I've done Instagram, but YouTube and LinkedIn, yeah.
Oh, nice.
I tell you what, your interviews have been outstanding with some people on your page. Charles Downing, like the king of no-till practice, right? I mean, now, did you grow up watching him, or when did you hear about Charles?
Let me think. I feel like I've always been a gardener. Like, I remember as a university student, I got a part-time job in a garden center, on the weekends, and I was surrounded by plants. It was like, heaven. And then I traveled through my 20s and 30s. We had a year in Siberia. Back home, my eldest daughter was born. Then we went to Japan for a couple of years, to Canada for a year, where my second daughter was born, then back to Japan. And we ended up back in New Zealand 2006. So living overseas, we were in apartments and the climate, Siberia was cold. But we would go to people's sort of weekend dachas where they grow their vegetables. So I kind of had my hands in the soil a little bit, and I certainly learned a lot about efficient urban waste management living in Japan, and just how simple it could be. Japanese society is so organized. So what was your question? How long have I been following Charles Downing? So I got back to New Zealand 2006, and it was like, yeah, I'm home in my home climate, and it was gardening. We moved house a few times, and my marriage ended in 2013. So somewhere along the line, I was in a part-time office job. The kids were doing music and just doing the mum thing. Then I was watching YouTube videos and just going, I want to live on the land. Yeah, I couldn't say when I started following Charles, but when I started my business, he's just one of those delightful people to go, it's, anyone can do this.
You know what it has to be? It had to be that perfect garden. You go onto a magazine or somewhere as you're researching, and you see this perfect garden. Well, that's his garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the pictures, like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
My gardens are a little more chaotic. I'm not sure I could be in complete alignment with how Charles gardens, the sort of straight rows and everything behaving. I like a little more chaos.
Well, you just want everything to work together. That's all.
Yeah.
So, talking about, you said your kids. How many kids do you have, and how old are they now?
So Sophie is 25, Jessica is 21, and Jessica's daughter Hazel is 2 years old.
So do they call you Nanny, Grammy?
I'm Granny Trini.
And did your mom have a garden?
Yeah, I grew up sort of a typical property in New Zealand. I guess it was a 1/4 acre section. There was a great big old plum tree that we would climb. We had feijoa, apple, grapes, big grass garden. But my parents both grew up on farms. My mother grew up in Scotland. My father's family were in the South Island of New Zealand. And I get the feeling they were both very happy to leave their farming lifestyle and never have to grow food. Like there was this whole kind of societal shift away from needing to grow our own food to having to. So for me growing up, it felt like gardening was kind of a chore that wasn't forced on anyone. We would go fruit picking and my mother would bottle fruit, but back in the 80s, I was born in 73. Back in the 80s, you could get boxes of seconds to sort of make into jams and things that, they still had that appreciation for farming.
I think my mom still has that idea. Like she thinks gardens are kind of useless. I don't know though, but she also comes from a generation where, like, here we had the Great Depression. So my mom also hoards canned goods. She didn't live through the Great Depression, but her parents did. So it's just like she hoards canned goods, but she doesn't have a garden. She won't garden. She thinks it's not worth her time. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but she comes from a weird perspective, I guess you would say. But yeah.
It's interesting to see where our parents, what did they do? Was it a victory garden? Did they value it? Did they live in a city and just had to get stuff from the store and never seen a farm before? Was it too cold where you grow? Is it too hot? And all the moving you moved all over the place. You've seen a lot of climates.
Yeah, I'm a Sagittarius, and we're known for like up and move and off we go, new territory, another adventure. But what you were saying about like what people's parents' experience was sort of informs their experience. I meet a lot of clients who don't have their parents nearby, or they have this memory of gardening with their grandparents, like it's going back to generations, and they want that in their lives. But I mean, I don't know what it's like in America, but here in New Zealand, there's not really anywhere to learn that. You walk into a garden centre and they're just going to sell you stuff, not teach you how to not have to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a shock today. What kind of? we're here, and I don't know if you have them there, but here we have what is called Tractor Supply. It is a store that sells supplies for your chickens and, whatever. You can also buy nice candles and pillows and stuff. Okay. So you walk in, I walked in and I'm looking for phosphorus because I've had this wisteria that I've had it for 5 years and it hasn't bloomed once. Right. So I'm trying to look for whatever I can to get it to bloom. So I'm looking at all this stuff and I refuse obviously to buy Miracle Grow and stuff like that. So I'm looking around, I'm asked the guy, I'm like, do you have anything that has phosphorus in it? And he's like, I don't know what that is. And I was like, isn't this your store? Like, don't you work here? We come across a lot of people that don't. It surprises me because I am surrounded by people that garden all the time. Like our group here, everybody gardens. And then I go somewhere and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So I just thought that was very odd. But do you have that there? Not a lot of people garden or...
Oh, a lot of people have gardens. Driving through different neighborhoods, there's a kind of different style of gardening depending on where you live. So the little town where I live, there's a lot of empty gardens where people just mow their lawn and don't do anything else. But there's also a lot of lifestyle blocks where they get a landscaper in to design everything and it's stunning. But they don't necessarily...
Do you have zones there like we do? I know like different countries, it kind of shocked me when I heard that different countries don't have zones. Here we have zones. Like we have 4A and 4B, and it goes from 5, 6, 7, 8, and all the way down to 9 or even 10. Those zones basically tell you what you can grow and when. I live in 6B, so obviously I can't grow like citrus. I can't grow, lemons or anything like that. What is it like there? And can you grow tropical fruits or no?
Yeah. So I've seen some people use the American zoning classification when they describe their land. Like, you know, I mean, this part of New Zealand, it's the equivalent to that zone. I wouldn't know what it is in your language. So other people use like tropical, what is it? Temperate, and again, I don't know those. I mean, the climate is changing, right? So
yeah, the zones have changed.
Zones changing, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so
and the reason why I'm asking that is because here we get what is called a farmer's almanac. And in that farmer's almanac, it goes over all the different moon phases and stuff like that in it. And it can tell you, like, I don't think a lot of people here buy the farmer's almanac. It's been around, I don't know, for me since the beginning of time. And you can really just go in there, read it, and they'll tell you how to plant something, when to plant it by. I know a few years ago, it told me that I needed to plant my garlic by November 22nd. And I did, and I had a great year of garlic. So it does tell you how to do things, and it tells you how to do things by moon phases as well. And I know a lot of people that have done that, and I don't know how successful it was. So I know that you are into the moon calendar and stuff like that. So explain that a little bit further for us in the audience.
Sure. So I haven't seen the Farmer's Almanac, so I don't know if that's something that is available for different countries and how it works and what's in it. So I can't kind of speak to the content. But here in New Zealand, there are so many different ways of working with the moon. So many. And there are a few companies that do moon planting guides on their website. So my advice is to people who are just starting out, find a company that you know, like, and trust, and follow their moon calendar for a bit, see how it works, and then shift to someone else's version and see how that works. So I've got a few with me. This is one that a lot of people buy. So
cool. I've never seen that before. That's cool.
I've never seen that before either. This is awesome.
So, you turn it so that the full moon lines up with the day of the month, and then all the different tasks according to full moon, new moon, waxing, waning are on there. So that's probably what's in your Farmer's Almanac. Is that?
Yeah, it boggles my mind seeing like that. That's a really cool chart you have there. So, all right. I'm
blown away too. This is awesome.
I have this little thing that tells me when to plant. I slide it back and forth, and it tells me when to plant my stuff, but it doesn't do the moon phases. If I wanted to do the moon phases and do that chart, this might get complicated.
It's going to get complicated. So, and I would just say before we go any further, this is not a biodynamic moon calendar. So
okay.
For me, the calendar I use is published by a guy in Australia. So that's
okay.
That's my guide.
That's awesome.
And Joe, I know you've seen my YouTube videos with the monthly guide to the calendar. So the purpose of that is to take this very complex sort of set of information and flip it backwards and say to people, just put the calendar aside and let's talk about what you actually want to do in your garden, because there's a high chance that the weather and your schedule is going to be a bigger influence than what the moon's doing.
Yeah.
So a lot of people look at those sort of monthly guides or the Farmer's Almanac and they'll go, I've missed out my chance to plant my garlic. We'll plant it next year, instead of going, man, I really want garlic. I know it's a week late. I'm going to do it anyway, because that's in my annual goal for the garden, is to at least have a go at it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes just following your own intuition is better than following what someone's published.
Yeah. So like, it's just a guide. It's not like you better do it by this date or your garlic's going to turn to mush. It's just a guide that tells you, like, if you do it by this, maybe your stuff is going to turn out okay.
It's going to be better, for sure.
Now, what
is
exactly does the moon phases do to the garden? What does it do? A full moon versus a new moon, crescent moon. What does all that do to the garden?
I'm told that when there's a full moon, there's more moisture in the atmosphere, there's more moisture in the soil, there's a greater chance of fungal diseases. And if you're a wine grower or your livelihood depends on your crop actually being a success, then any sort of weather indications that are going to have an impact on your crop, if you're biodynamic or even organic, you want to prevent those diseases before they happen.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, as I don't know if you're parents or not, but when looks like it's going to rain, you send your kids out dressed appropriately for the weather. Because they get cold and wet, they're going to get sick, and then it's a problem.
Okay. So that makes sense. So even if it's a full moon, that could, that's kind of like a tide. Like it must pull the water up.
Yeah.
And whatever back and forth. So if you have a full moon at a
one of the sort of indications. I mean, the full moon is the most obvious one for us to notice. It's the moon's getting bigger and bigger, and you can see the moon in the daytime sometimes, in the nighttime sometimes. But what's more interesting from my perspective is if you sort of set an intention to watch where the moon travels across the sky, you can start to sort of feel, there's almost like a path up there, that then you can start to look at that path and notice where it's going. So the moon travels higher and higher each day till it gets to its highest point, and then it starts traveling lower and lower across the sky each day. That sort of ascending and descending affects the Earth. So within biodynamics, we consider the Earth as a living being that's breathing on a daily basis, and each season breathing in and out. At the moment, there's this really interesting point where, we're going into autumn. Things are sort of, the leaves are dropping, the temperature's cooling down, but you guys are getting the opposite. So it's like the energy is kind of passing through the planet, and you're getting spring growth and things are warming up and your energy is coming up where our energy is kind of going down. Yeah. So when the moon is starting to get higher and higher in the sky, we call that the ascending period. And it's like energies drawing upwards. That's when I do my seed sowing. And if you think of when you put a seed in the ground, you want it to stretch upwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you were going to start pruning your fruit trees, if all the plants are stretching upwards, then chopping off a limb when the energy is radiating out is going to cause more of an impact than if you do it the opposite time of the moon's cycle. So when the moon is kind of descending, getting lower and lower, the Earth's energy is contracting. So if a fruit tree's energy is contracting and you cut off a limb, it doesn't hurt as much. Like the impact is less. And yeah, so there's that ascending and descending I find more interesting than the waxing, waning cycle.
So, there's obviously there's visual evidence of the moon and what it does to the Earth, because obviously we have tides and stuff like that. So you can visually see it.
Yeah.
Can you visually see it in your plants? What I don't visually see something like that in my plants. So now I am wondering, is this real? I'm sorry.
There is a woman, Maria Thun, who wrote this results from the Biodynamic Sowing and Planting Calendar. So one thing I didn't realize, I've only recently gotten this book, is that she sowed seeds every day of her life after discovering biodynamics, and she tracked the results. So you can actually look at the research and see what effects the ascending and descending phases have.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know people actually tracked that, and so that makes me want to research more. That's really cool.
But in terms of can I feel it, sometimes it's almost a little bit like astrology that someone tells you we're going into Aries season, it's the start of the energetic new year, and for me it's like I want to shake off those projects that have gone stale so that I've got room to start something new. Does that energy align because I already knew, or is there actually something in it? And do we need to prove it?
It's very interesting, though. I don't know. I believe it no matter what, but I also would like to see visual evidence too. So, but yeah, like with the full moon and the tide, obviously that's a real thing. So it's obviously doing something to us, and it's doing something that not just our plants, but also us. I mean, we may get headaches or, something may be going on in our bodies at that specific time or something like that.
I have trouble sleeping during the full moon.
Yeah, we just had a full moon here. It was absolutely gorgeous. But it's, they always say that, things in hospitals, people have more accidents because of the full moon and stuff like that. And yes, we're all made up of water. So why wouldn't the moon pull us in a different direction? So
yeah. And I often think about how as human beings, we can shut the curtains in our bedrooms and block out some of that light, but our gardens are exposed 24/7.
Right.
There's got to be more energy with more light.
Now I'm like, I might do my own research and see if my plants grow more on a full moon scale. I'm curious.
I would love to see your results.
Yeah, curious now.
I tell you, you get to see what happens with the full moon in New Jersey. First, you got ocean flooding, and when I Uber on weekends, I do that's a part-time job. You got to see how wacky people are. It's like, oh no, hope somebody doesn't throw up my car tonight. But it just brings up, it's like, I can't believe how many people can't drive all of a sudden. You got ocean problems. You got everybody's just off with the full moon. That's what I have always noticed.
Can I add in something else about the full moon?
100%.
And it is to do with an Indigenous approach to agriculture. So here in New Zealand, Maori people have been gardening for many, many hundreds of years, and they follow the moon. So there is this guide called the Maramataka, where every single one of the 30 days of the moon cycle has its own name. And they use the lunar cycle not just for gardening, but also for fishing, for planning when to have different types of meetings, when to avoid the tricky neighbors or not have that family meeting because there's more friction. But I think even if sort of Western organics, if there are people that don't think there's enough evidence, I think it's really important to respect Indigenous approaches to agriculture. And,
totally. Yeah.
And so, I'm kind of looking at my biodynamic calendar and the Maori Maramataka and going, I want these two to merge. And if I'm working with a Maori group, I'll ask them to look at the Maramataka and pick a date that works for them.
I don't know a whole lot about New Zealand. Are these people still on your island today? Are they, or I'm just like, I know a lot of different cultures.
There's there's an amazing sort of how do I put it? Almost like when I was at university, so I'm 50, so we're going back 30 years, and I studied education. There was a movement around that time to start bilingual kindergartens, that they said we have to have a whole new generation that is immersed in their language. And so those young people are now lawyers and doctors and politicians, and we've got an MP who will speak in te reo Māori in Parliament for a few minutes before switching to English. And, so in effect, I think her talking time is halved because she's doing it in 2 languages. But they are claiming their rights to not only their language, but Indigenous practices.
That's really, really cool. I love that. Yeah. That's really awesome. So tell us a little bit about your blue borage. I'm curious, what is this? It's your business. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I started in 2018. At the time, I thought it would be a few years before everyone would be composting. Like, it just made sense that this was a gap, a skill gap in mainstream gardening. And 6 years on, I'm saying the same thing. Like, people just don't want to make soil. I don't get it. So through the pandemic years, I took my business online. I created an online school. I have just as many followers outside of New Zealand as I do within New Zealand. 2 years ago, I left my home of 10 years, and so I now live in the country, and I'm surrounded by conventional agriculture where the big ag chemicals are dominant. And I go along to the local town business association meetings, and kind of can we composting, organics, pollinator gardenings, and I sometimes feel like I'm treated like the local witch.
But New Zealand, I mean, it is a small island, right? So when you are doing when you're using all these chemicals and stuff, you're affecting a lot of people. It's smaller than most countries. So I understand the fight in that. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like, it's very small. So for people to use chemicals, you're really affecting everybody on the island.
Yeah. So it's 2 main islands and then a little island at the bottom. So the North Island and South Island. There's a much bigger population in the North Island. So I'm about an hour away from Auckland City. There's a population 1 million. New Zealand has a population of 5 million. So if you think of 20% of the population in one city, and there are a lot of beaches in Auckland. And the area where I live, the commercial growers have been using so much nitrogen fertilizer. It's leaching into the groundwater. It's moving underground into the harbour and polluting the water. It's affecting the fish life. And not only that, but our sewage systems and the stormwater systems, anytime we have a heavy rainfall, it all gets overwhelmed and they pump the stuff out into the sea, and the beaches are unswimmable. So for you as Americans, when you hear New Zealand, do you think clean beaches, clean, green, stunning scenery,
beautiful cliffs and greenery, and just wonderful beaches, and volcano? There's a volcano there, correct?
Yeah. There's lots of.
And so I think of that, and so I don't think
that disappointing to hear of unswimmable beaches in our biggest city. Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking. And you guys have a lot of like ocean wildlife there that can all be affected by that. Whales and
of course
all different types of sea life, and that's horrible. And so we do have the same thing here. With the Delta and the Gulf of Mexico, like, I guess it can be seen on satellite, like the nasty mass that's in the Gulf of Mexico just hanging out there, like, it's so gross. And it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah. So I went off on a massive tangent. You asked about blue borage. So my feeling was that if our biggest sort of political and economic movers and shakers have no interest in improving soil health, then it has to be consumer driven. And so then it was, we have to educate home gardeners. We have to get people so excited about composting that they can then ask for better treatment of the soil in commercial spaces.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, can I change the world with home gardens? I don't know. I think, Joe, you've got a big mission to change the world with home gardens, right?
Exactly. And it all starts with the soil, and we're ruining the soil. They say the earth, we have the last inch of soil right now, even though I have no idea how they figured that out. But our soil is the most important thing, because without our soil and clean oceans, which is all acidic, what are we doing? We're thinking what science could solve everything, when all the questions need to be just fix the soil, fix the water, and we should be living healthy.
Well, it's if we flip it to go, well, we have trashed the soil, we could change our behavior, and there's all these food scraps and all this garden waste that can make new soil, that can heal the soil that's there. That if we can just see this kind of waste problem as a resource that's the answer to the environmental issue, then we can make a sort of a U-turn and course correct. We may never catch up to the extent that it stops being a concern. I worry about the world my granddaughter will grow up in.
Yeah, I understand
what we're doing is, if we change the world, it's our love letter to our kids. It really is. Just like that movie with Common Ground. That's what it is. It's a movie about changing how we could change life, and it's to our kids. Two of the things I seen on your page that I thought was very interesting is composting at work and composting at schools. Because around here, never heard of it. And I don't know if it's New Zealand that way, but that's two things that we should be focusing on. That's two easy ways where the kids can learn from the ground all the way up. This is where we do with our foods. They could go home, teach their parents. I think that is a perfect way to start learning how to compost.
I'm so glad you agree with me. Can we push this? I was joking with someone a wee while ago about composting in schools and how they saw teachers. It's just the logical sort of lever to make this change. And I've worked with a few schools, and I've had some very challenging conversations with people who work in schools. And I said to this person, school teachers like telling other people what to do. They don't actually like being told what they should be doing differently. Yeah. So here in New Zealand, there is so much pressure on teachers to tick all these boxes and file all these reports and deliver this curriculum. The new government that we have here has just introduced an extra requirement that every child must have every day an hour of reading, an hour of maths, an hour of writing. So they're really pushing that literacy that I'm going, oh, we could do that with composting. We could do that with gardening. But because I'm not in a school seeing what they have to actually produce back to the Ministry of Education, it's like an idealistic picture that is going to add a huge amount of work to a profession that's already giving so much. My ex-husband was a school teacher, so I was a spouse of a teacher for many, many years, and I know what they give. Yeah, but composting in businesses, this is, I think, a more interesting place to actually get some action, and small businesses that are small enough to see the potential to do something really creative and leap into it and have this sort of sustainable story that's fully embracing a circular economy, keeping trucks off the road, improving the soil, growing food and flowers that I've just started working with a restaurant owner who has experience in biodynamics. He's actually from America, and he owns 2 restaurants. So 2 weeks ago, we installed this stunning compost bin in his garden. And I was talking with him this morning, and he's brought restaurant scraps from both of his restaurants, and he's making soil in his backyard. So this is Michael Dirth. His restaurants are The Grove and Baduzzi, Michael P. Dirth. And I met him through one of our biodynamic wine growers. There's another restaurant where I tend the garden, and I said, is it time to actually create these biodynamic teaching gardens next to restaurants where we can have stunning meals and drink the best wine and pull these people together going, we want to eat well, we have to look after soil because the food is grown in the soil. So this biodynamic winemaker friend, James Milton, said, if you want to get into that demographic, you've got to talk with Michael Dirth. So Michael, we met, and sort of walking into the Grove, which is this very fine dining experience. And, I normally wear overalls to work, and I had my nice shoes and kind of going, and it's like so out of place for me. But his chef, Corey Campbell, is totally on board with creating sustainable restaurant kitchen sort of environments, and so we're exploring that, and it's amazing. What else to say about businesses? I am in the circular economy business directory with the Sustainable Business Network here, and still waiting to find companies that are willing to include on-site composting within their circular economy sustainability story. Most companies send stuff away on trucks still. And the part of New Zealand where I am, the food scraps are sent to an anaerobic digester. So that's removing that resource from the food system, which I think is going backwards.
A lot of things are going backwards.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
So, where you two lived, what businesses do you see as having the potential to have a compost bin for their staff, for their clients to use?
I think all office buildings should have one. I think it's so simple to do. I think it's so simple, but nobody ever starts. I'm thinking of my work right now.
Every restaurant here should. Think about it. If every restaurant did that, oh
my God,
there's so many restaurants here that are so wasteful. Specifically, I don't know if it's anywhere else, but America, restaurants here are really wasteful. And they don't give their health, because of health codes, they're not allowed to give their foods away. So if they have extra food, they can't. It's the health code violation.
So if they teamed up with, say, an urban farm or a market gardener, and if some of their staff were willing to take a few buckets of food scraps away, then you could connect that sort of closed loop system, even for restaurants that didn't have land.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every cafe and restaurant I know of has someone washing the dishes, and they're paying that person to wash the dishes, right? They're paying someone to mop the floor and wash the windows and clear the tables. That if making soil could be another role that was just part of the business operations, I don't see why it's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if it's not hard. It's just out of habit too. Because they've been doing it for so long.
I think sometimes people see an idea and they want to copy it, that we need a few more role models to actually show off about what they're doing. So Auckland City, I got shown they have 67 hungry bin worm farms in their basement. So they've got an underground car park, and they've got bicycles, and you can sort of see everyone's gear where they change from their bicycle clothes into their work clothes. And it's really cool. But along one wall, there's just this massive worm farm with the worm bins lined up, and someone's paid to bring all the cafeteria scraps down in the different lunchrooms. It's like a sort of a 20-story office building. But like if that worm farmer were trained in marketing and showed what's going on down there, then all those other office buildings could go, far out, we want to do that too. And not just in Auckland, but all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyone watching this, that's the challenge, to get your marketing team trained up in composting and worm farming, or get your worm farmer trained up in marketing, one way or the other.
You are the perfect person to interview for this. This is great because this is everything that we've been talking about. We've been talking about worm farming, talking about biochar, talking about generating everything, talking about biodynamic principles. When was the first time you started like, hey, maybe I should, like, this is really cool, I should do this? Like, what was your first step to, okay, we talked about gardening, a little farming in the beginning, you know, but when was the first time you just stepped into biodynamic principles?
So my kids started going to a Steiner school, a Waldorf school. And so I was a school parent. I joined an anthroposophical reading group to understand the philosophy underpinning the education system. My ex-husband was a Waldorf teacher. So I was in this world where the wisdom of human beings, anthroposophy, was just what everyone was talking about, that it was like you kind of either get on board or you don't, that I got on board. And the reading group that I was going to, the hosts was an art therapist, an anthroposophical art therapist called Neeltje Bollen, and her husband Peter Bollen. And they would host biodynamic stirs as a social gathering. So I went along because, you know, this was part of being in the reading group, was you go along and stir. And then I saw a documentary, One Man, One Cow, One Planet, about a New Zealander, Peter Proctor, who went to India. And when I saw the effect on this big country with farmers committing suicide and just the transformation in the soil, I went, whoa, this is much bigger than home gardening. That I went deeper into how it works and why it's needed and why it's so, like, what are the barriers? So around that time, I used my first set of biodynamic compost preparations. So I'm thinking this was about 2011, 2012. And the effect on my compost was so remarkable that it was like one of those kind of moments we have in life where just everything changes. Like, it was no longer intellectual. It was, I just had to make more soil of that sort of vibrancy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We interviewed Tim Steckel. You made a comment, and he was the first person. How long have you known Tim?
Maybe 3-4 months. So I have a Kiwi LinkedIn buddy, Richard Moore. So Richard connected Tim Steckel and I, and then Tim and I hopped on a Zoom call. And then about a month later, he announced this 30-day compost marketing challenge. And I was like, I'm in. So Tim is the most remarkable community host, where, you know, you would think that composters have enough in common that we would all agree on everything, but we're all so different, so diverse. And yet Tim has set up this marketing challenge to sort of celebrate the individuality and idiosyncrasies, and everyone is welcome. That where in my sort of New Zealand-based composting circles, I can often be not ostracized, but, you know, treated like the local witch. I don't feel that within this marketing challenge. Yeah.
So I'm going to play a quick video from your LinkedIn page and give you a couple seconds of break, get something to drink quick. And I love LinkedIn. I've been meeting so many great people. There's 22 people on the LinkedIn page that register for this live. So if you are there, hello. And so
he's watching. Tim Steckel's not watching, is he?
I don't know. We'll find out in a little while. I hope he is. So, could you guys see this on your page? Because I can't see when I play a video. Okay, so I'm going to play this for a little bit. So this is Katrina.
Container gardening this week, and just done a class on Zoom, and so this is the sort of tidy up time to finish the jobs that I started online, which was how to turn a like this is just a storage box. I've made a drainage hole in it, filled it with homemade potting mix, which I have made out of worm castings and compost and aged mulch and garden soil and what else is in here? Leaf mold. Leaf mold is really, really good for you making your own potting mix. And so, yeah, I've got these little baby lettuces that I am planting up for, I don't know, I might sell them, I might give them away, they might be for the school. Are the schools ever going to open? Yeah, so the main thing is that these plants need more space. So I am getting them into a container garden. Lovely long roots on these. And the trick with doing this is the soil's nice and moist, and so I normally use my fancy tool from Kawanga Gardens that makes a nice deep hole, and then you can just drop the plant in. But to be honest, when I'm sort of lazy and I can't find my special tool, just a plastic fork is actually lighter, it's quicker, and in some ways easier. These get really cold in winter, whereas the plastic tools don't really feel the temperature. So there's a couple of rows of lettuce. I am also going to plant some of the kale that I've got down this bottom corner here. So this is how I plant my seeds in one big tray. This has got 2 varieties of cabbage, 2 varieties of spinach, and 2 varieties of kale. And the kale at this stage, it is ready to be planted on. I hold them just by the leaves. You don't want to touch that stem because it's really fragile. If you're going to damage the plant, it'll be by touching that stem part. And so trying to hold it by the leaves, make that hole, drop the plant in, and then get it nicely nestled. And that is how I plant up these boxes here. So this one has a mixture of radish at the bottom. In the middle there is 3 rows of marigolds, and in the top there's loads and loads of leek, which I have planted for the leek is for the soup garden at the school, if the school ever gets to go back and have a soup garden. If they don't, I know there's a teacher at the school looking after the chickens. This is Green Bay Primary, and so I might, hopefully level 3, I'll be able to pass the tray on to her, and she can at least get the vegetables in, so that, heck, even if it's term 4, the children will be able to harvest the vegetables for making soup. So that's container gardening job for me today. The other thing I'm doing is I found another packet of bulbs, and so the ranunculus have gone into the container. I did this one with the class just now that's got an in-ground worm farm in the middle. And we also did another salad planter, but it's way too heavy to pick up. So I hope you're having a lovely time in the garden. And if you'd like tips on container gardening, worm farming, transplanting, seed sowing, making your own potting mix, hop over to Blue Borage or join the group Blue Borage Gardening. That's free, and come hang out. Bye.
Love that.
It's so strange to watch. That that was 2020 pandemic gardening.
Wow.
Schools closed, teaching online, trying to keep a school garden going with no kids there. Yeah.
Wow.
But something like growing like that, it's so easy. It's right in front of you. You can move it wherever you want. I love that. It's something we all could do. So that person, you could bring it inside if it's too cold. I like a lot of those little things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually making a video, something very similar to that, and probably this week. So same exact thing with leaf mold. We have leaf mold in my neighbor's property. They just moved where they just pile leaves for 15 years. So I'm really looking forward to using that before the next neighbor moves in. And just using a lot of it.
I'm curious, is there a culture in America of making your own potting mix? Do you have a thing called potting mix, or is that a New Zealand terminology?
No, we do. You can make your own here for
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
And do people make their own, or is it mostly buying it from the store?
I mean, I do, but I think the average person doesn't.
Okay.
I think people that garden more, that understand the soil, understand compost, they probably do it more and make their own. But I would say your average person that just wants to plant a couple tomatoes and, they definitely don't make their own soil. So, yeah.
It just matters where you live a little bit and how they grew up.
Wouldn't it be cool if even the average gardener growing just a herb planter could install an in-ground worm farm and start making their own soil without feeling like they're making their own soil because the worms are doing the work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be neat.
That's what I need. I really want to do is do a worm farm. And we had this AJ's Green Topics on our channel, and exactly what we're talking about with worm farming, because it's something that not many people do. And there's many misconceptions. Like my wife would be like, "You're not putting that in a house. There's no way. They come up and go up my nose." Some crazy things.
Yeah. There are a lot of myths to be busted, which is really exciting.
Yeah. I'm definitely into making my own soil. I definitely want to make my own seed starting soil because seed starting mix is so expensive. Okay. And it has, just in this last year, it has shot up tremendously. Okay. I don't know but it's just crazy. So I'm definitely into trying to make my own seed starting mix for sure.
Fantastic. Have you heard or thought of interviewing this guy, Randy Ritchie? He's one of your fellow American people. So Malibu Compost is his company, and he's this is the first of his books, but he's got a great podcast and Biodynamic. So best practice, yeah.
Huh. We'll have to look him up because that would be right up our alley, really.
That's what this channel's about. It's about it's about the soil, but it's from try to help the beginner gardener to the most advanced gardener, and hopefully we could all come together. And that's what I'm trying to do with the LinkedIn page. I mean, everybody. It seems like we have people that just go so far to learn things and stop, or for example, on learning. And I got that from like Matt Powers and others that people generally just go to one way and stop. They work on to the next thing instead of keep on going and going and going. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to do with relationships is trying to get everybody to come together because there's everybody's, everybody in the United States, at least, we're so busy. There's a lot of things to do first where, hey, I got this to do. I got kids to do. I got to go to bed. They're just all worried about themselves. And I get it. But, or it's about money. Mm-hmm. I'm teaching a lesson. That's all I want to do is teach. But when they come to teaching the rest of society besides their classroom, how much money am I going to get? It's all about money. And that needs to stop. We really need to help each other out.
Yes. And how do we professionalize composting in a way that the skill of teaching people how to make soil is just as valuable as any other sort of necessary function in society. You know, like we're kind of like environmental engineers who are expected to do it voluntarily.
It just needs to be taught. Like there's no thought in it. You're starting with the kids.
Yeah.
And by the time we get older, it should just be a common thing to do, just like in other countries, I think like Japan, where it's just common thing they do. You know, it's just not even thought of anymore. They just do it.
Second nature. Yeah.
Second nature.
Yeah. I heard someone describe it as ecosystems literacy. I think that's quite a good term.
Yeah, that is a good term.
Yeah, I think it's good stuff. So biodynamic principles and practices. Before we got into compost for the rest of the conversation, because there's so many things we should ask.
Yeah.
Explain a little bit we already talked about it, but for people who are confused by what biodynamic principles and practices, explain a little bit about how it works.
Okay, so biodynamics was first taught in 1924, so it's 100 years old. There was something that happened around 1940, 1950 as sort of organics, as we know it today, was being born, where a few people looked at what Rudolf Steiner taught and removed all the spirituality, simplified it, and that became organics. So a lot of biodynamics is just good common sense organic practices, companion planting, sort of biodiversity, like obviously not using all the chemicals, respect for animals, like really looking after your animals as if they're pets. The calendar is another element of the biodynamic principles, but I'm just trying to think what is it about biodynamics that when I go into an organization that's so not like that, I have to sort of educate them a little bit. It's kind of like here in New Zealand, we have this thing, social enterprise, where you're not only looking after profits, but you're also looking after people and the planet. So Rudolf Steiner taught this thing, the threefold social order, where politics and economics and cultural life were all of equal value. Like it's not just about making money. It's not just about politics. We have to sort of imbue everything with love and art and beauty and feeling, so that every step of the gardening process is mesmerizing, fascinating. For me, I don't have a religious background. My grandparents were religious. My parents were sort of, I guess, atheists. And so I'm more towards the sort of, if there were an earth religion, I'd be in. So I've been studying nature, communication, and animism. That really resonates for me. So I talk with my trees. I talk with my soil. When I meet a new customer, with their permission, I will talk with the landscape surrounding them and sort of feel what's going on in the environment and how we can help correct things. But from a basic perspective, biodynamic principles.
See, Katrina, what I think everything with biodynamic principles, it all comes down to the microbes. Because the way I'm looking at it is, if you're using animals and they're healthy and you're doing the right thing and treating them right, and everything's working together in a whole cycle. And when you get that healthy cycle, you're going to have healthy microbes for gardening.
Sure.
And so you have healthy microbes and a lot of microbes into your garden, you're going to have a healthier plant, and a healthier plant is a healthier person.
Can we take it one step further and give those microbes intelligence?
We're going to make sure they
What
find a
kind
nice
of
home. Yeah.
Like, could we listen to the microbes and
Mhm.
tune into what they are experiencing and seeing and feeling? Like, I mean, that's where I would go. Yeah, it's more than that kind of scientific view. There's so much more.
And they do have a language.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have, if the less microbes you have, the more your soil is not, it's just not going to be as good. So their language, it's basically telling you the soil is basically telling you what it needs.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that science is discovering more and more nuances year by year, that it's like, I kind of read these studies and go, yeah, so Steiner knew that.
Wow. Yeah. I love this. I love this conversation.
It's really deep, Joe.
You know what it is? It's talking in a way where, again, I always say put stuff in your pocket. And that's what this is about. Like, how many people have ever talked about compost at work? Have you ever heard of that before? I have never heard of compost at work.
No, it's not a thing here. It really isn't. It's not a thing here. No.
No, I was talking with someone who worked at a tertiary education institute, and she used to take lunch scraps from the lunchroom home with her to her own compost bin. She never told anyone about it. She just did it. She didn't like to see them going to landfill. And then the institution decided to implement like a sort of sustainability policy, and they hired a composting company to take all the food scraps away to a commercial composting facility. And like, I just kind of think, like, if they had said, hey, is anyone taking food scraps home? Is there a way we could like systematize this? Then they may have found that there were 50 or 100 people taking their lunch scraps in someone else's home and making soil, but they never asked. Like, is it possible there are workplaces in your neighborhood where people are composting, but they're just not talking about it?
I don't know. I doubt it. I know that they recycle, and that's a thing here. There's recycling, but as far as compost in the work area, I worked in an office for almost 10 years and never once had seen anything like that.
That's so exciting, isn't it? Like the
it's exciting. I'm thinking about worm farming at work. I think that's great. You know, a lot of companies do though with like a Dunkin' Donuts. A lot of companies are giving away their coffee grinds. You know, so a lot of people are giving that away. So that's something which is good for layering.
Step in the right direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's going to happen. Will it happen in our lifetime? That's the question.
I don't know. I hope so.
You know what? That leads me to, in the United States, RFK is running for president. He's like an independent, and he's huge in the soil. Everything he's he's running for office. He announced as vice president, and half of his speech was about the soil. And I was like, about time. And if you guys haven't had a chance to listen to that, go to YouTube, put RFK, vice president, or whatever you want to put, and just listen to it, not just his speech, but the whole lead up. And that was what we need around here. I mean, just everybody's just going crazy around the whole world, more or less. Think about the world with war and this and that and the soil, and everything's like a disaster, but it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't have to be. One thing I didn't mention in relation to composting in the workplace is if we kind of put food scraps to the side and look at the garden waste. That's a new focus for Auckland City, near where I live, where they're going, this is a resource. And here in New Zealand, a lot of properties are spraying weeds with glyphosate. Is that happening where you
It's big time. It's really big over here. Yeah.
Because I know it's banned in Europe or in a lot of places around Europe. That that's another frontier that we really have to sort of fight for the soil.
So we had the glyphosate fact finder on. That's what she's known as, the glyphosate lady. And totally blew me away what was going on. 80% of the people have glyphosate in their bodies from beer, wine, soda. I mean, oh my God, the poisons.
Honey,
and
those poor bees.
Mm-hmm.
And you see our government fighting things. And like Mexico has now banned glyphosate, I believe. And the United States came back and has said, bull, give us some facts. All right. So Mexico comes back and he wrote a 300-page paper. This is why we don't want.
Well, what happened was we were giving them our corn. Corn is really big here. And we were giving them our corn, but they found out that like these small towns, because Mexico makes corn tortillas and stuff like that. It's one of their main crops. It's what they eat. And so they came back and like half these towns had cancer and people were dying. And they're like, it's from the corn. They know it's from the corn. So then they refused to take our corn. Which,
excellent.
Yeah. And Mexico, and that's not something you think of. Like that Mexico would deny, like, it's not something that we would think about here. Like, oh wow, Mexico won't take our food.
Yeah.
You know? And here they're like, we should follow Mexico's foods in their guidelines because, you know, and we're not. It's really sad. But
buy your beans from Mexico.
Yeah.
It's sad to think that way, but it's true.
Yeah, I just last week gave a verbal submission on the waste plan for Auckland City, and I was talking about how if we stop using weed killer, like we have to find a way of working with the weeds. That I have an online course I call Weeds, Wondrous Weeds, and it's holistic green waste management. And I say, you know, compare that with what you do, which is the war on weeds and these kind of weed bins that people can drop off their invasive weeds. That this is one of the other biodynamic principles is we create closed loop systems where everything stays on site, even the weeds. So we find ways to turn them into a resource, turn them into soil or a weed tea so that they're no longer the enemy. That, that's something I would really encourage people to look into. And follow me on Instagram, Blue Borage, and I give as many tips as I can, and I create online courses to answer the questions people send me. So this course, Weeds, Wondrous Weeds, we've got case studies that look at the different common invasive plant species and how to do it, and it's so much fun, so beautiful.
So I want to show your YouTube page in a second. I just want to say, mods, thank you so much for keep on generating those links of everything about Katrina. I appreciate that. They've been nonstop since the live started with a whole bunch of links.
See these comments popping up and thinking, I don't see you typing. Who's doing that in the background?
Just like that. Boom. You ask, you shall receive.
We have awesome moderators in our chat.
That's brilliant.
Jane Doe and Jay Dixon they're just amazing. And Food Forest Permaculture, which is our buddy Howie, he's been posting stuff like left and right, and it's like, this is great.
That borage tastes like cucumbers. Yes, it does. But I love it as a companion plant, and man, it draws in the bees.
Yes. Well, this is why I sort of named my business that. Was I wanted this kind of like plant that was good for the soil, that also gives us edible flowers and looks after the bees. So my original tagline was bee friendly and biodynamic, and my marketing person at the time said, no, you have to say what you actually do. You have to get compost in there. And I was like, do I? Yeah, what I didn't know at the time was that as a herbal remedy, borage gives us courage. And I think if we're going to sort of turn the Titanic and look after the soil, it's going to require an awful lot of people to be incredibly courageous.
Yeah, pollinators with borage has been,
My
I can
board last
imagine
year was out of control. I just let it do its thing. And I had so many bees on that thing. I had it all over the place, but there was one particular place, it got up like 4 or 5 feet. It was huge. And I just kind of let it do its own thing. And I had so many bumblebees and honeybees all over it. It was so cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I'm going to show your YouTube page, and we'll talk about that for a second.
Yeah, this is something I have only been doing fairly recently, and the reason for this was I kind of got booted off Facebook. They deactivated my ad account permanently around the time that I was advertising weeds, wondrous weeds workshops that I managed to get hold of a customer service person, and they agreed that perhaps that 4-letter word triggered some sort of an alert that
maybe they thought you were advertising weed.
Yeah.
Which is a completely different thing, but I get it. But that's probably why. But they have these bots that do that, and they don't have feelings. That's not. So they just reads a word, and then it's boom, you're gone. Like I have a friend who has a canning site on Facebook, and they have to be very careful when they talk about rendering fat. They have to be careful about using words like that because it'll mark against their group.
Yeah.
And it's stupid. Like they're not calling people fat. They're talking about fats.
I had a business coach who she had a side business selling cross-stitch patterns, and there was one that had rabbits, like it might have been an Easter theme or something. But she was pinged for shipping rabbits across the country.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah. What do you want to say about the YouTube channel, Joe? Or what do you want to ask?
I still can't believe we got Charles Downing on.
Oh, he is so delightful. He did a biodynamic stir on Instagram. And when I looked at the comments, there were so many people attacking him for it, saying they had trusted him for years and years to be scientific and what was he doing, that I started chatting with him. And I can't remember how the first interview came about. I wanted to ask how he felt about biodynamics and just get that sort of voice of expertise and wisdom and mainstream gardening, and let him talk about it so that people who were skeptical could hear a little more than what was on Instagram. And then the second time I talked with him was for the Northland Edible Garden Trail, and he actually sponsored my travel for that event, which was incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so nice. So here you talk about your biodynamic moon calendar for each period.
Yeah, that came about at the Biodynamic conference last year in May here in New Zealand. We had breakout rooms at the end of the conference and asked people what were their biggest barriers or frustrations, or what did they want to see the association do. And in my group, it was people saying, I don't know how to use the calendar. Like, I get it in the mail, and how do I actually make it make sense in my garden? That I felt that a lot of commercial growers know exactly how to use it, but it's a little bit different in the home garden setting where you're not selling your crops. You don't necessarily time your whole life around the moon. That I felt I had something to offer for the home garden setting, and it's been a lot of fun. I get people writing and thanking me for that.
And here you talked about Humanure with Richard Moore.
Yes, so he's my LinkedIn buddy. The use of drinking water to flush toilets is something that I think is not sustainable. Water is more and more precious year by year, and we can compost human waste above ground quite easily. Here in New Zealand, we don't use that in edible growing systems, so it needs to be separate. But I use my human manure compost in a section of the garden I've called my flower farm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And how did the word soilpreneur come from?
So I'm in business groups with a lot of sort of introvert, sort of highly sensitive people, mostly female online business owners. So soulpreneur, S-O-U-L, is a term that a lot of people are using. And then solopreneur, someone who's an entrepreneur working on their own. And then just, soilpreneur just popped into my head one day. It was like, that's fun.
I like that name a lot. That's like, this is a pretty cool word.
Yeah, I like it too.
We need more soilpreneurs out there. Not compost.
Charles Eisenstein had a really great interview recently where he was talking about the statistics of people who work with the land and how it's dropped as with industrialized agriculture. And he gave a picture of, like, imagine if 10% of the population were working with the land. And we sort of scale farms back to family operations. And we would then have a lot of compost consultants and compost makers and urban farmers and worm farmers and soilpreneurs. And the soil would be happier for it, I think. We'd certainly have less trucks on the road.
Oh, 100%. Okay, let's talk about compost. It's already an hour, 24 minutes into the interview. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for basically staying for the whole interview so far. You guys haven't moved, so thank you guys so much for coming and sharing us out and being here for us tonight. Just let you guys know going forward, people that just came in, we're going to try to get people early in our chat. We're going to give away seeds and stuff because we like giving away seeds. So our live on Monday, we're talking about microbes, and we got a pretty cool guest. Let's I gotta get his name again. Everest Holmes, and we're going to talk about the compost. So
make sure you ask him about bamboo.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly. You guys, it's an awesome live lining up for Tuesday. So you guys gonna want to watch that. You guys gonna want to watch that one. So compost. Explain everybody what is composting. So we're gonna start off from the beginning, and we'll go a little bit more advanced the way the conversation goes. So because I want everybody to compost. So again,
So it's different to the soil that you dig up when you dig a hole to plant a tree. That's your garden soil. Compost is something we've intentionally made by, for me, mostly it's garden waste and food scraps that are blended together so that it turns into soil. Yeah. So I don't like the scientific kind of definitions and go into all the terminology. It's something I demonstrate.
Yeah, it's how he said layers of biomass.
I'm happy with that.
And so with Howie, which is at Food Forest Permaculture, he has a pathway soil bank. That's the way I look at it. Pathway soil. Howie probably is going to correct me in a second. And so when you have a pathway soil, so you're just doing layers and layers between biochar, compost, things like that, little small branches, like lasagna gardening. You keep on doing layers, layers, and layers, and layers. And so that's what he does right into his soil. And his soil is absolutely amazing. So his food forest, as he calls it, my food forest, is absolutely, you look at it and it's like, I want that soil. I want to pick up soil and just, you want to smell it.
Once you feel soil with that sort of degree of life and vitality, it literally becomes addictive. I see it more like making a cake. So I used to build my compost piles in layers, and then I had a few batches where there'd be something like grass clippings or autumn leaves that condensed and formed a sort of a layer that everything under it was really dry and hadn't broken down, that I now mix things. So rather than having separate layers, it's just all mixed, much like a cake mix.
So how does composting benefit the environment?
It adds fertility, so you don't need the synthetic fertilizers. It protects the soil so it doesn't dry out, so you don't lose the nutrients. With biodynamic composting and biodynamic preparations, you're helping the plants develop deeper taproots, so there's a deeper topsoil layer. So when it rains, the ground holds more water, there's less runoff, so storms aren't a problem. And when there are droughts, the plants are drinking moisture from much, much deeper, so that droughts aren't a problem either. So you become more climate resilient. Gosh, there's so many benefits.
Someone asked, what should they not add to their compost?
Okay, I personally would say don't add compostable packaging. Even if the companies claim that it turns to soil, I don't think you want that soil in your own garden. Send it away. Metal won't break down, plastic won't break down, toxic chemicals don't break down. Here in New Zealand, we have a Facebook group called Killer Compost, which is people who've composted garden waste that's been sprayed with a herbicide containing clopyralid. So be really careful about where you're sourcing the materials for your compost, and know what chemicals you're adding, and preferably don't add any. So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
So do you, with your compost, you just leave it alone, or do you use a bin, or do you toss and turn? You know, what kind of
some different methods, Joe. Let's see. The bulk of my food scraps I'm putting into worm farms, and so they are carefully placed, or I use products that are rodent proof. I don't want any rats in my compost. I teach my customers how to rodent proof all their composting. I think if we're attracting rats, that has the risk of home composting being shut down. And if we lose the right to compost, we're in even more trouble. My garden waste, I make hot compost piles. And so that is, I made 60 hot compost piles last year. So it's about one a week, where I gather all the green material, and the brown material is generally leftovers from a previous compost pile that as I turn, I'm using the finished compost, and what hasn't broken down, like fruit tree prunings and some of the more stubborn weeds that take a few goes through the compost, that all gets mixed in with the greens. Lots of cow manure. Cow manure is amazing in your compost. And seaweed tea, weed tea. Yeah, every situation I go into, we create a custom blend for that person's garden. So when I started Blue Borage, I used to have a recipe that I would send people and say, gather all this stuff and we'll make compost. And they were kind of going to all this effort to go and source all these things, and they didn't feel they were ready to start. And then when we actually started making the soil, I'd look around the property and go, oh, you've got that, and that. I don't have that at home. You're so lucky. You've got everything you need right here. Composting doesn't have to be so hard.
So what are the key components of successful composting?
Greens, browns, air, moisture. It's really just so simple. Or worms and a worm farm. Yeah.
And how do you how do you troubleshoot common composting issues?
Um,
And what kind of questions do the kids have that you're blown away by what their question? Like, no, or yes, yes, yes.
okay, the troubleshooting, most of the time it is compost that smells, and that's where there's either too much moisture or it's gone anaerobic or they haven't mixed it or they've just got the wrong piece of equipment for the waste that they have. And so with that, we will either turn it or we add in some mulch or some cow manure or some greens, or we get the right piece of equipment and just remix it all into that. Other troubleshooting, the rodent issue is one that I'm frequently addressing. But to be honest, a lot of the compost equipment that's sold is pretty ugly, that people have it positioned way in the back corner of the garden where they don't have to look at it. And so one thing I'm often fixing is bringing it closer to the kitchen so it becomes part of the garden and the soil's actually feeding the garden as they add the material. So that's where the in-ground worm farms are so good. I see a question popping up. Could Katrina give tips on how small organizations can overcome common compost questions? So I think with small organizations, it's a really good idea to call someone like me in, and I teach key staff members in a sort of a workshop setting so that rather than people coming to learn in my space, we're learning in their environment so they can implement those recommendations ongoing. When I worked at a primary intermediate school, I had a group of 12-year-olds write the school compost manual and create these little sort of request sheets that they would drop off at different classes and say, could class 3 please do some weeding? Could class 5 please bring 10 wheelbarrows of mulch to the compost area? That, yeah. Your other question was, what have kids said that's blown me away? I had one sort of, I want to say 10, 11-year-old who we were opening up a compost pile that we'd made a couple of months before, and the soil was finished. It was ready to go out in the gardens. And he had been part of the group that made that compost. So he knew what was in it. And as we were opening it up and he had it in his hands, he goes, this isn't compost. He goes, this, it's soil. Like, how did that happen? Because and especially in a school situation where until they start making good compost, anyone on compost duty is handling stinky food scraps, that they associate the word compost with something gross. So that was lovely to see his whole world just go, wow, I had no idea. Yeah. The other situation that I love is my little 2-year-old granddaughter. The last time I was down there, her mother, so my daughter, was one of these kids that was on compost duty too long. She just can't handle food scraps or anything. Just but little Hazel, who's 2, loves the worms, that she's taking the little bucket of food scraps and can we feed the worms, and just like mesmerized by the life that she sees. Yeah.
So what does composting matter for climate change?
I'm not the right person to rattle off all the statistics on that. I'm sorry. I find the climate science really depressing. I just switch off. So we're mostly talking about creating sponge cities so that floods aren't as much of a problem. The water soaks into the ground and the ground can hold it. And droughts aren't a problem because the plants have those deep taproot systems. There's something around carbon and the whole sort of trend of talking about carbon sequestration and capturing that carbon in the soil. I don't talk about that. And I don't connect with what the scientists are saying. That for me, it's more about let's manage this waste like it's a precious resource and get the trucks off the road and make beautiful, exquisite soil and grow food. So we know where our food comes from. We're eating seasonally. We're caring for the soil. We're connected with the earth. And it may be too late, but we have to try.
So there's another question for you underneath. I don't know if you can see that. Want me to read it out?
Are any of your teas aerated? They're open and they get used frequently. The biodynamic preparations, we will often take something like CPP, which is fermented cow manure with the herbal remedies added, stir that for 20 minutes and then use it immediately. So in my mind, that's aerated, and because of the compost preparations, I have a suspicion that the sort of microbial activity is really high from the get-go, that 20 minutes is enough to have a powerful effect on the land. But it's different to, say, an aerated worm tea. I'm incredibly lazy and I'm a home gardener, not a farmer, so I haven't put all the effort into the sort of professional scale of worm teas and the like.
How long should manure age before you prevent burning of the plants?
When I'm using fresh manure, it's in a hot compost pile for 3 months, and then that finished compost is either getting lightly sprinkled around the garden or it's going into a potting mix blend where it's maybe 30% of the mix. Every now and then I'll make a hot compost pile and then smush everything out and plant straight into that soil. But, you know, my compost has seeds in it from all my companion plants that they're growing happily. They're not burnt by the compost. I think it's the commercial compost blends that you have to worry about burning your soil more than home compost.
How often do you test your compost?
I've never done a soil test in my life, not a pH test, to me, observing what grows out of it and how it tastes, that's my test. Yeah, what I will start testing is the Brix levels, because I have had the most delicious strawberries this year. Unbelievable. Like every other garden I've lived in, I've had birds eating the strawberries, and it's like I'm growing bird food. And I saw a YouTube webinar from someone, I don't remember the name, but he was talking about how insects and humans are not competing for the same food, but actually the insects are attacking the food that the Brix levels aren't high enough for human consumption. So, and biodynamics, the Brix levels are higher. This is why the wine growers use it so much, that I'm just wondering whether the flavor of these strawberries has been that kind of ultra high Brix levels, and even the birds are kind of leaving it alone because it's too sweet. I can't explain it any other way.
Wow, that's fascinating. Did you ever think about putting a water fountain nearby by your strawberries, that the birds would rather go into the water fountain instead to the strawberry?
No, I rent. I don't put a lot of money into installing fancy garden features. Yeah.
I get that. Now, if you had like tomatoes and you have bottomless rot, would you add calcium to your soil, or would you just let the compost take an effect?
If I had tomatoes, and what was the problem?
Like bottomless rot. A Roma tomato has more bottomless rot than other tomatoes. Usually it's either a calcium issue or a water issue.
Okay. So I had some fungal issues with a tomato crop a year and a half ago. And I kind of went, I really need to make sure that future tomato crops I'm spraying with, there's a biodynamic preparation, Equisetum, it's BD508. And again, the wine growers use this to prevent fungal issues, and that would probably have helped that batch of tomatoes. There's another biodynamic remedy, BD501, the horn silica preparation, which will improve the flavor and also help with some of the other disease issues. So no, I'm not adding anything. I don't buy any remedies from the garden center. I just don't want to know. Sorry. So, Corky, even your comment before about phosphorus, I'm thinking, why is your wisteria not flowering? Like, what is it?
I know. It's driving me nuts. And then somebody told me, I forget who told me, they were like, oh, so, it can take a long time. I think they said 15 years. And I'm like, I'm not going to have this thing around for 15 years. Something needs to happen now. I've had it for 5 and it grows beautifully. Oh, and I get, it's a vine and it does fine, but I just haven't got those beautiful purple blooms on it that I want. So
yeah, see, I'd be looking carefully at that plant and talking with it and looking at the soil and how is it, does it need to be pruned? Is there something at some particular time of the year? What's around it? All sorts of questions. So this is one of the other areas with biodynamics that we're looking at the whole ecosystem, not just one plant. Does my area go through a cold stratification cycle? No, we don't. So we don't get any snow. I think we had 2 days of frost last year where I live. So I guess a lot of people would say that's not a true winter.
Now, do you get earwigs in your composting pile? And are they a bad thing, good thing?
I think I get earwigs. They're not a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, so now you got me all about my wisteria. I'm going to go out there. I bought some phosphate stuff. Bone meal. I'm going to put it out there and hopefully I get something this year. If not, I'm just going to, I don't know, wait till it blooms. I don't know.
Are the wisterias in your climate flowering? Like it's not an unreasonable thing to expect, hey?
Yeah, no. Yeah. There's this, my mom knows this little old lady and her wisteria has gotten incredibly out of control and it's all over. Like it's on like 20-foot tall trees. Like it's just all over the place and it blooms. It's all over the place. It blooms. It's happy, whatever. And here I'm over here trying to get mine.
And it's in the ground, not a pot?
No, it's in the ground.
Okay.
It's crazy. Hers is crazy, but I just want mine to do something.
I would love to look into that for you if you want to connect after this.
Okay.
Send me an email and a photo and I'll
sure.
I can find out. Yeah.
Can bones and meat scraps be composted?
This is such one of my favorite topics. I say yes.
I agree.
Yeah. And I would also say that the meat scraps are going to be what attracts the rodents. So you really have to rodent proof your compost. And one of my biodynamic teachers was talking about how the composting process is a little bit like a digestion process. And if you think about the human stomach is where we do our digestion, it's contained. Yeah, like what comes out the other end smells, but that doesn't smell while it's inside us. That if we can keep those kind of odor causing elements of the compost well contained while they break down. Another topic on bones, particularly, a lot of people will go out and buy blood and bone, but when you think about where that is made and how it's made, I don't want that influence in my garden. I would rather compost the bone of something that I've bought to eat. And even if it takes a few years, it just goes from one pile to another pile to another pile and infuses the qualities into the soil that way.
Now, biochar. Have you ever used biochar?
I have used it. I don't know enough about it, but the people my colleagues who use it and make it and teach it, I have huge respect for, and I think it's amazing. Yeah, but I don't make it yet.
So we're talking about biochar. There's a difference between biochar and wood ash. When you use wood ash to a compost pile, that could be a little, it could change your pH a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm really careful with wood ash. It's tiny amounts, and I mix it sort of like in a bucket of other material so that as it goes into the compost, it's not clumping. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember asking this when I was younger. Can pet waste be composted?
Pet waste, another really fascinating subject. So I have a cat. He wanders through the garden. He cleans up after himself. I don't know where he's gone. And I'm harvesting food from the garden to eat, and it's never made me sick. So is this just common sense? Like, I grew up and we would play on the lawn, and if there was a dog poop, we'd just kind of like throw it under a tree so that no one stood on it. But now we've got all this fuss around pet waste. But yeah, definitely I wouldn't put it into your normal compost pile, but maybe a dedicated part of the garden under a tree that you love where it all kind of goes. Doesn't belong in landfill.
So if you had a pile of compost, when do you know when to turn it?
I generally don't sort of quote unquote turn my compost. I will carefully blend and mix and make a hot compost pile and leave it alone for 2.5, 3 months. And then when I open that up, half of it, or 2/3 of it, is ready to use as finished compost. And the bits that are left are often thick logs or branches that will take a little more time, and they go into the next pile. Yeah. So I think that there's a method of composting, the Barclay method, where you turn it every 3 days and you get finished compost in 21 days or something.
Yeah.
So that turning and mixing, what a lot of energy. Like, I could make 8 compost piles with that same energy. That I would rather do that.
Yeah. I understand that. Like, I don't want, and I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. They want something that's no nonsense. They don't want to have to go out there and keep turning the piles and sticking the thermometer in there and whatever. But I do think it's kind of funny when it catches fire.
So the other thing I would say about turning the compost is that we're all about no dig and minimal tillage and not disturbing the soil, and the soil is sacred. That
yeah.
If that were the case, wouldn't it make sense to not turn it?
Yeah.
Like, minimal disturbance, just let nature take its course.
Totally agree.
Yeah. What is this question here? Is adding amendment to compost to preload good or just a waste? I'm not sure what you mean by amendment. I know there are lots of companies promoting different things you can add to your compost. For me, I'm totally happy with what nature provides: the seaweed, the cow manure, chicken manure, horse manure, and then the biodynamic preparations. You might call them an amendment, but I know what's in them. I know where they're from, and they make such a difference that, yeah, I add the yarrow, chamomile, stinging nettle, oak bark, dandelion, valerian when I make the hot compost pile. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
How about, are slugs a problem with compost?
Say that again, sorry?
Are slugs a problem with compost?
I don't think so. I find them delightful. I get these giant tiger slugs, like they would with my hand, and they've got these sort of black spots over them. Like, some of them are almost the size of a small sort of a mouse, and they're heavy.
I forgot everything in New Zealand and Australia is humongous. Even your spiders.
So Serena asked, is the compost maker sold in stores good for speeding up compost process?
Gosh, I don't know what to say about that. I don't want to undermine good work that companies who love soil are doing out there. Test it. Or, I'm a certified garden coach, and I think one of the things in our training was to recommend people to go find someone in your neighborhood whose garden you love and ask them. Go find someone who lives near you who's making amazing soil and get them to teach you. And I don't know that that's going to be in a garden center.
Can fruit waste be composted?
Yes.
That was easy.
For me, I'm personally putting fruit waste into worm farms. The worm castings are just so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. One of the questions I had from somebody goes, can I compost grass clippings that have been treated with pesticides?
Yeah, personally, I don't. What are the pesticides? There's so many out there, and a lot of the companies will say that there's no residue. Yeah. So I'm working towards Hua Parakore verification. It's an Indigenous growing system here in New Zealand. So they talk about it not being organic, but what we're doing, because organics is like a Western terminology, and we're reclaiming Indigenous rights to Indigenous methods, that what we're growing is pure food. Kai atua, and Māori kai means food, and atua is like the deities, the gods. So we're growing food the way higher beings would want us to eat. And so the question of pesticides,
yeah,
is that what human beings are meant to be eating? I would say no.
Yeah, and I definitely wouldn't want that in my compost bin, because even if they say it breaks down, I still don't trust that. And when it does break down, where is it going? I don't know.
Yeah. So how do we get it out of the environment completely is the next question. Like, what can these companies do that will keep them in business and not harm their profits, but let them save the world, not kill it? Because I think if they can see an easy out, then they can stop what they're doing and not go bankrupt. Like if Coca-Cola could start doing something with empty plastic bottles, there's enough of them in the world to keep them busy for a long time.
Yeah.
And they could be the heroes.
Right.
So true. You have any other kind of questions, Corky?
No, not at this time. I'm with you on the Coca-Cola bottle thing. I'd rather drink from a glass bottle. I hate drinking out of plastic. And I think when you drink out of glass, it tastes better. And so why can't we go back to that and just recycle the glass? What's wrong with that? Now it's like everything comes in plastic. My favorite tea, I love to drink iced tea. My favorite tea used to be in a glass bottle. And since the pandemic, they went to plastic. And I don't even drink it anymore because it tastes horrible. It doesn't taste the same. And so I don't know why. And this is a really good example. Grocery stores here, they stopped doing plastic bags because they say it hurts the environment. But all of our food comes in plastic. Our ketchup, our mayonnaise, all of that comes in plastic. And like our salad blends and stuff like that, they come in a plastic bag. But yet you don't want us carrying our groceries in a plastic bag. Like, how much sense does that make?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just, it's very frustrating.
So frustrating.
Well, Katrina, thank you so much for coming on. You spent an hour and 55 minutes with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Every time we do an interview, we had an interview like that. I have an hour and 30 minutes, but it could, end earlier or end a little later. And they never end an hour, 30 minutes. They always go
No.
after. And I'm totally, thank you so much for coming on, sharing everything, answering all our questions. We appreciate it. And hopefully we could just keep on growing as a country and growing. And I mean, just compost.
Right.
It's looking for the soil. And thank you for showing the video of the common ground. I can't wait to see that. And yeah, thank you for all the work you do. And let's bring composting into gardening and prioritize soil health. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're hoping to have you sometime in the near future too, just to reflect on things and talk a little bit about New Zealand, because it's something that we really don't know much about.
Come for a visit.
That sounds great.
That would be awesome.
Grow big TV in New Zealand. Let's go.
That would be awesome. Well, we'll write it off as a business expense there, Joe.
That's true. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We need some donations. Well, thank you so much, Katrina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Have a great day. That's right. It's only like 2:00 in the afternoon there.
Yeah. And it's the next day already.
That's right. Have a good weekend. Take care. Thank you so much.
Many of you guys, I conducted a poll. So if you guys answered it, so how many of you make your own soil? So we had 83% of the people said yes, and 17% of the people said no. So that's something to think about. Maybe you need to start making your own soil. Thanks for participating in that.
Corky, that was an awesome interview.
Yes, it was.
I enjoyed that so much. I really, really enjoyed it. That calendar, when she showed in the beginning.
Oh, I know. I've never even seen that before. So cool.
Because I mean, I heard of stuff with the moon, but I really didn't know stuff about the moon. And when she showed that, I'm like, I want that. I need that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay Dixon. Road trip. Educational purposes.
Road trip. I don't think we're going to drive to New Zealand, though. So.
Maybe we'll have to ask somebody for a plane, and we'll pick up Jay and Howie and Jane and a whole bunch of other people. Let's go. Road trip.
Our yearly trip. For Grow Big TV.
That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? I would absolutely love that. But compost is so important. The soil is so important. And I know you guys know that, but a lot of people don't. Just like some kids think that they grow food at the grocery store. That's how they get it. Something so like what?
So like what? But I don't blame them either. Like not everybody grew up in the country. Not everybody grew up like I did. Most people spent their entire lives in the city. So they don't know where their food comes from. They think it does come from the grocery store. So, yeah, have to start educating people more. Start pushing our information out there more.
Let me see. Socks in the Garden said so much great information. And as I said, when we do these on Tuesdays and Thursdays, put stuff in your pocket, guys, because there's going to be something that nobody knows. There's going to be something in that telecast that you could really put into your own garden. Happy Matt goes, I really liked her. I'm down for a road trip to New Zealand.
All right. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in, participating in the survey, asking a lot of questions, because that really also makes it worthwhile. It's when the audience asks a lot of questions. So thank you so much for doing that. Yep. We need a travel yacht. That's for sure. We'll
and
Grow Big TV yacht. Head on out.
Can't wait for the yacht. Hey, that lottery that just got won, I passed that shop right that day, and I was going to get tickets in that freaking store.
Oh, wow.
And I was Uber, and that's the reason why I was around there. So it was, only what, $1 billion. And I'm like, my wife goes, "Hey, did you get your lottery tickets from anywhere around there?" Yeah. But I was like, I'm going. I was like, I should have went in there. Well, some things are just not meant to be. I'm back to working, work. Anyway, Tuesday, guys, we have Everett Holmes on, and it's going to be great. You guys are going to learn a lot, especially about microbes. Everett Holmes is back. I was into the soil food webinar, and they're going to actually hook us up with some guests, which is pretty amazing. That's with Elaine Ingram, and which is that's really cool. Connections. But for this Tuesday, Everett Holmes, and this is another. Oh yeah, Joe, new business opportunity. Uber Yacht. They do have Uber Yacht in some places, by the way. Yeah, you're going to want to be at Tuesday's live. Please like and share it out. And we're sorry that when we start these lives, that we're not welcoming you like we want to sometimes. Like when we do the zucchini and the peppers and other kind of growing guides, we have more time to talk to you guys. But when we do these interviews, it's an hour and 45-minute interview. We can't have them hanging out for, long period of time. We are going to give out some seeds and stuff to begin some lives, like really fast, because we want you guys in the chat or do something very similar to that. We got to try to work that out because we don't want to waste the guest time. So maybe instead of 8 o'clock start, maybe I'll start at 7:45 and give away seeds, and 8 o'clock starts the interview. That might be something more likely. So, what do you think about that, Corky? I'm just putting this on you just like that because it just came to my brain.
I don't know. I'll have to think about it and see. I don't know. We do have 47 people in the house right now, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, 50. 50 just popped up.
Oh, 50. We got 50.
So I don't want to really go away. Mark Robinson is here. Welcome in, Mark. I do want to have a zucchini growing guide because we have 6 contests, right? Boom, boom, boom. And out of those 6 contests, you could win $100. And so check out those videos for registration. Also, I'm going to start working, because I haven't had a chance, on our Share Channel network, and which was done about a month ago. I haven't had a chance, but it's so important to share channels out. I'm not just even talking about mine, but sharing out other channels. It really, really helps. And so I want to try to get that shared network growing and started and growing. I got a Serena joke. Serena, what's your joke? Hurry up, Serena. Hurry up. Post it. I'll put you under pressure. You got 3 seconds. I'm just joking, Serena, but hurry up. I know they come through the live, Serena, but I can't put them up when we're doing an interview. So once we see Serena's joke, we're pretty much going to end the live. So hold on for the Serena joke. Oh, there's 51 people in the chat. If you guys who just came to the channel, come back, go follow the start of the live today. There's so much great information. And Howie says, good night, Earthlings. Peace brings love, and love brings peace. Thanks, you kindly fellow Earthlings, for being you. See ya, Joe, Corky, and Katrina. And thank you for being here, Howie.
Thanks for coming in.
Okay, come on, Serena. Come on. Hey, welcome in, LP. Welcome in.
Hello.
And you see Jay. Jay wants to go to sleep. She is getting too tired. Come on, Serena. Tell a joke now. Okay, I might have to find it. I think we put Serena to... Nope, Serena was there a couple seconds ago. Looking Serena, and everybody's still here waiting for that joke. It's funny. This is so funny. One second, let's see what Wickershire Project said. I cannot 100% share my watermelon radish method to not split them. I will have some disassembly before I show them second video and last video. I showed seed start and what they are growing in. Kind of. It's a secret. 1 second. Serena, this is all I got. Pilgrims and hay fever. Did I miss the front? Beginning. Serena, for some reason, we didn't get your beginning joke. The only thing we got was, hey, hi, David Gray. And the next one said, oh, Serena. Pilgrims and hay fever. Serena. Serena. So Wickershire said, grown big secret. Use your own method. Full reveal once someone wins it. And Mike's still funny. Laughing out loud. Make your own joke, please, Mike says. Oh my god, that's so funny. So there's still 46 people in the chat waiting for Serena's joke. You guys are great. Corky's falling asleep here. She got stuff to do. Okay, Big Will Dog has a joke. Okay, here we go. Serena, you're fired.
Just kidding. He's just kidding. Doesn't every joke start like that, though? A priest, a rabbi, and a nun. Okay. What's Garfield's favorite way to garden? Lasagna gardening. Because he likes lasagna. I like lasagna, too.
I really like lasagna.
Oh my gosh, am I Garfield?
I'm just hungry. I want layers of lasagna. And that's that composted in my belly. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for being here. There is no Sunday Fun Day this week. Corky, do you plan to go live in the next couple days?
Not that I'm aware of. I've been kind of like taking it slow because it's my son's spring break and stuff. And then, of course, we got Easter. So,
yeah, we're spending mom in my mom's house. And as you guys know, my mom has been battling cancer. She has stage 4 cancer. So we're want to spend time with her. So that means we're going to her house. So as Jay Dixon said, ta-da! So we'll see you guys on Tuesday. And I might make a video out here and there talking about the Share Network. And maybe I'll show you something what's going on in the garden. Or somewhere it's garden related. Okay. See you guys.
All right, guys. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.